The Bills have faced this system and philosophy a few times already this year. And honestly, the team they're going to be playing against in the Detroit Lions this coming week runs a very similar system. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about, overall today that applies to the Rams game is also going to apply to the Lions game.
Yeah, this, from that side of the ball, the Rams offense, and they're a good group coming in. I think the injuries this year and last year especially, I think it really kind of muddied the fact that when this group is just halfway healthy, they're a really good offense at the quarterback spot, the weapon spot. Yeah, even the offensive line, there's some good bodies up there. And then you have Sean McVay, kind of being the puppet master behind all of it. And Erik, you have this tweet pulled up from Kendall Mursky, formerly of Cover One and now researcher for NFL Next Gen, which is pretty cool. And he had a really great tweet Monday afternoon. It was cool. I was telling you offline because he texted me this because I talked about this so much the offseason and we were talking about it. And this tweet really hit home for me, given, like you mentioned, the trends we're seeing league wide. So this isn't, and you mentioned this offline too, which I think is important to note. What happened in this game and what we're going to talk about in this specific area with condensed formations isn't necessarily like, well, the Bills' weakness. It's a trend league-wide.
Yes.
A lot of teams offensively are shifting to it. A lot of the quote-unquote best offenses usually have reduced formational width and operate in this form and fashion. So it is very much in vogue. It's a way good offenses like to attack defenses, and the Bills really fell victim to that against the Rams this past week.
Yeah, Kendall's tweet, he says the Bills have allowed 6 yards per play in 5 games this season. 3 of those 5 offenses were the Rams, Houston, and Miami in Week 9, ranked top 10 in condensed formation usage this season. The Rams have the highest rate, Houston has the 3rd highest rate, Miami has the 6th highest rate, and coincidentally enough, the Bills played Detroit in Week 15. They have the 4th highest rate in this category. So this is a big talking point in this episode, something that we want to cover, not just with data, but with film. And so I ask you, Ant, it's something you talked about all offseason. Reiterate why condensed formations are so trendy right now, and more specifically, why they give the Bills defense issues.
Yeah, it starts with literally like the condensed nature of it and kind of bringing everything closer together. For me and for a lot of teams, I think it starts with the run. You've got more bodies near or attached to the line of scrimmage, so you can get to more in the run game. It's not just like, weak side zone or outside this. You can get to so much from a menu standpoint just by having that alignment. And then you talk about the pass game, you've got bodies closer. You have to kind of get closer as a defense. Guys are getting on your toes faster if you're a defender. It's harder to play match coverages when there's condensed formations because a lot of times, you're reading who's the 1, who's the 2, who's the 3. Yeah. If everybody's in tight, and we saw the Bills do this to the Chiefs a little bit. All of a sudden, 3 becomes 1, 2 becomes 3, and you're figuring out, okay, who do I have? Who do you have? It's easy to kind of expose a defense quickly, find some space, force them to communicate and really rely on one another, in addition to being able to access more of the menu from a run standpoint. It just gives you a lot of versatility in addition to limiting some tells and tendency pieces as well.
Yeah, when you're having these formations tight, you see everyone is well inside the numbers, just we're almost near the hashes. That formation condensed, it really brings the defense into a box because now you're adding all those gaps near the line of scrimmage, near the tackles and the tackle box. And so you're getting everyone in a tighter area because they have to account for gaps. Especially when you're talking to Bills defense. They're a one gap type team, right? They are an up the field, one gapping team. So when, say, the offense runs a zone run, all those gaps are moving. And now you have to account for that integrity and those, that gap control. And so you see on this play that the formation gives the wide receiver the angle on Taron Johnson, but it also gives the angle to Cooper Kupp, who comes down and goes and cracks on the safety there. And you can see both of them are able to reach and get good angles to the second level. Here against the Jets, you see Taron Johnson out wide. You see that the formation is tight, but it's not tight like the last play. Now you see Taron just come down into the box on this lead play and blow that play up. Very similar look. And so you can see how, mainly when we're talking run game, it gives the offense angles, especially if you're talking, blocking. Watch the receiver to the bottom of the screen, tight to the formation, reduced width. He can come down and get a piece of Dorian Williams to really set the alley on this play by the Dolphins. And then now you have the guy who came across the formation able to kick out Douglas there. And now you have a running back in the alley for a big run.
Yeah, you really get the opportunity to mess with the defense spatially, angularly, from a leverage standpoint. And then on top of that, when you're adding in all the motion and the misdirection, now you are adding, processing and communication and movement. And this is something, again, this isn't something that, man, the Bills defense got exposed against this type of offense. This is a common theme and trend for a lot of offense, especially those from the Shanahan tree, which Sean McVay is, which Mike McDaniel is, obviously in
Yeah.
Miami with that clip we just showed. But it's something, it's funny showing this Colts clip. The Colts are one of the leaders as well in terms of reduced formational width, just how they kind of attack from an
Yeah.
outside the numbers perspective and having success against the Bills, I should say, which they did in this game. And you can see there's, oh God, poor Taryn. Like you can just see, even when you're running these zone runs, like here we have, split zone and it's going to the inside zone, inside split zone. Erik, like you said, because you're moving gaps and you're adding bodies, it's almost still functioning kind of like a gap run. So you're getting that people moving ability, and you have to have that ability to kind of count for a specific lane and hole. Even though it is a zone run, it just adds so many multitude of
Yeah.
little layers and details.
Yeah, and again, you have the split flow right here across of the jet action across the formation. So again, that is creating a calculation post snap for the defense. Again, one gap team. So now gaps are being added to one side of the field, but then a post snap, they're also adding another one. So now Taron Johnson is bumping over two gaps as a ball snap. He's come downhill. He's triggering, and he gets cleated. He decleated here. So this is what it does. Obviously, you're adding, first of all, a nickel into the box a lot of these times. And Taron, he can survive there, but there are times he's going to get picked off like this. And so you're in a tighter space. The guys at the second level, or when you are in these, reduced formations, the guys at the second level are really tasked with processing a lot pre and post snap. And then think about the defense of the Bills and how they are pretty light, how they are a nickel a bunch. When you have that type of defensive structure where you're bringing, 8 guys into the box because of the formational width and how it's reduced, that allows the offensive line to get better angles. But now you're getting tight ends, guards, and tackles up on nickel, defenders like Taron Johnson. So this is why it's such a trend across the league. This is why it creates such an issue for the Bills and for the run game side of things. But when we're talking the pass game, we're going to show you in the film from the Rams game how it created issues there, because we've seen the issues with the run and some of these clips and how offenses are reducing the width of their formations to really get good angles and get explosive runs against the Bills. But the passing game is really where I think in the Rams game specifically, a lot of their under center play action stuff, a lot of stuff we're going to see from Jared Goff and the Lions this week. In fact, probably even more layers to a lot of those play action plays and 3-level passing concepts off of run action. It really manipulates that second level. And so as you'll see in some of the film tonight, you're going to see a lot of run action from the Rams game, but you're going to see that those receivers and tight ends getting into that second level, that 10 to 19 yard range, because obviously all the eyes are coming downhill and looking downhill for that run action. And next thing you know, it's giving that wide receiver who's out wide outside the numbers the time to get down the field, the time to get in front of the corner, but behind that second level. And that's where the play action really hurt the Bills and has hurt the Bills over the years, because they go to a lot of those single high coverages when they want to stop the run, cover 3, cover 1. Bills played the third highest amount of cover 1, I believe, if I remember correctly, that we saw this year. The last time they played Detroit, they ran cover 1 like 38% of the time. So these are things you have to start thinking about as the season progresses, as the film from the Rams game shows up. And obviously Detroit's going to be running a lot of those same type of things. These things are going to keep coming up. So these are the type of things you need to keep in mind. Reduced formational width, that whole condensed formation discussion that, everyone was talking about, including yourself, all offseason. We're starting to see it play out, and it's going to be a huge part of the playoffs and late this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to remember the stat. Like, I think like 4 of the final or 6 of the final 8 teams in the playoffs last year were top 10 in reduced formational width. And it was like the Niners and the Texans and the Lions and all these teams that kind of lead in that regard. And, it was a good call with the single high coverage too. The Bills in this game against the Rams were in single high 63.4% of the time, which is crazy high, over 70% in the second half, obviously a response to what was happening on the ground in the first. And the Rams did a really good job. It starts with the body types, first and foremost, similarly to kind of the Lions this year, but especially with the Lions last year. You go with these condensed sets with these type of wide receivers, with Puka Nacua,
The
with
Bills do
Cooper
it too.
Kupp.
They're top
Bills do
5,
it too.
right?
Yep, Matt Collins and Khalil Shakir and these guys can block. Gabe Davis last year. The Lions last year with Amon-Ra and Josh Reynolds. This year it's Amon-Ra and Tim Patrick. You've got these bodies who can win against nickels and safeties, but also wash down edges and crack on linebackers and function, and then actually get out and run routes. And obviously the Rams receivers did a tremendous job in that regard, and they did a good job attacking outside the numbers with the Bills. And we just saw, like you said, that spatial area where in between, that second level is getting sucked up. The pass rush isn't able to get there because they have to play run to pass because of the play action. The Rams are stretching you and stressing you, creating leverage, attacking the space. How many sail concepts did we see in this game, or outbreakers? And just a ton. And they were really able to work in that spot consistently. And we saw it to, their benefit in this game. Just a huge day for Puka, huge day for Stafford, really attacking those spots over and over again.
Yeah, those are two names you're going to hear a lot once we get to the film. I'm going to bring it up here in a second. We're going to start on the defensive side. And the two main topics, aside from the reduced width stuff that we just talked about and those condensed formations, those are going to come up. But we're going to talk the single high coverages. You're going to hear that come up a lot in tonight's film room. You're going to hear third downs. I mean, the rush and coverage, they weren't in sync. You heard every player that was interviewed say that. You heard all coaches say that. On third down passing, the Rams were 9 for 10 for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their success rate passing was 70%. They saw pressure 40%. So on 4 of those plays, they had 6 completions of 10 yards or more on third down. They had 1 20-yard completion on third down. And this next set of stats is really what really shows you how the rush and coverage weren't complementary. So listen to this. Passes on third down only. Passes under 2.5 seconds. 70% of them occurred on under 2.5 seconds on third down. So, of those 10 passes, 70% of them were out of Stafford's hands and under 2.5 seconds. You can't, as a pass rusher, you can't get to the passer that quickly, especially when you have a good O-line like the Rams do. And so that really goes to show how, and we're going to show you in the film, that the Bills, weren't able to really trick Stafford. And we're talking pre to post snap picture, kind of confuse him, disguise it well enough so that post snap, he's like, oh, hold on. Is this cover 4? Is this cover 6? Is it, they didn't confuse him enough to get him to hold on to the ball 2.7 seconds, 2.8 seconds, so that the rush had a chance. That's what really, 70% of those passes out on third down in 2.5 seconds. That's what really, that's what that shows and displays. And if you can't do that, you're not going to get to the passer that often, especially the Bills. We're talking about the Bills pass rushers.
Yeah.
They're not guys that are just going to win with their quickness all the time. A lot of times it's going to be power. And so
compression in the pocket.
Exactly. And so I think that was a huge part of it. Obviously, Stafford, Super Bowl winning QB, he's seen it all.
He was on a heater, man. He was stealing.
It was crazy. It kind of reminded me of like Kirk Cousins when the Bills lost to the Vikings a couple of years back, and he was just throwing things blindly, not even looking, and just like completing it. Like some of the throws from Stafford were just unbelievable.
The one to Puka, going from left to right, where Benford is in like perfect position, but Stafford angles it, and then Puka, the turnaround hands, toe tap, like just ridiculous.
Sick.
And quick point too, you gave the pressure stats. Pressure was so important in this game. Coming into it, Matt Stafford, amongst 34 qualifying QBs, when under pressure, he was last in EPA, second last in EPA per dropback, last in completion percentage over expected, 31st out of 34 in QB rating, and 29th in yards per attempt. The book was, and again, it's easier said than done, but if you could pressure Stafford, he wasn't about it. Like you saw a ton of coming into this game. If he'd get pressured, you'd get one of those like, nah, and he would just dirt the ball. The Bills were unable to do that. Granted, Stafford did a good job, but a lot of it was those condensed sets, how they attacked, and just a major weak point for the Rams. The Bills were not able to exploit that, and the Rams mitigated it, and they found success.
Right. So here's early in the game, 3rd and 9. So a 3rd and long, and the Rams are able to get 9 yards here on a high-low concept out of a trips bunch set. And you're going to see, the Bills are right before the sticks. There's Cooper Kupp short of the sticks. Here comes Puka Nacua behind Taron Johnson and Bernard. And you can see Taron, he's sitting. He's waiting for Kupp, the throw to Kupp to happen. It doesn't happen. And then Nacua, you have Taylor Rapp also closing on him as well in that high-low. And the Bills get a little pressure. Vaughn gets a little pressure, and Stafford is able to break, contain, get outside the pocket, and find Nacua outside of structure. So early on this 3rd down, they were in great shape. But again, the pass rush didn't get home. This was one of the few plays, especially we're talking third downs, where the Russian coverage were pretty close to being on the same page, but not enough against Stafford.
Yeah, this was one early on where it's kind of like, tip your cap.
Yeah.
Okay, like Stafford avoids, gets out, makes a play. Really good job by Puka Nacua, as you highlighted there. Gets eyes on Stafford, sees where his quarterback is, puts his feet in the ground, works back to space. He's so good in scramble drill, and Stafford's showing good athleticism. Again, getting out of the pocket. Puka's getting past the sticks. Taryn is closing down, like you said, on Cooper Kupp. So we get that high-low, which we see a ton in the Shanahan, McVay, that tree, that scheme. And then Stafford shows a little bit of I was going to say Georgia Matt Stafford, but he wasn't even really athletic back then. So this is just a good play from Stafford.
And the big thing, again, look at the formation here. This is a 1st and 10 play from the first quarter. It's a 13-yard gain off of play action under center. Again, this is going to be worn out the rest of this year. We're talking under center play action game. And the Bills love running cover 3 versus these type of looks, especially trips bunch looks. The Bills run cover 3 37.5% of the time against trips bunch looks. The league averages 29.8%, and the Rams run trips bunch set the 5th most in the league. So there was a lot of this, and they do it different ways. Sometimes it's like that last saw the bunch on the last play where it was kind of out wide. This one it's more condensed, right? And so you get that run action. The Bills bring guys down into the box, and you get that run action and play action play as the Bills roll into that cover 3 look. And a lot of these concepts from this are 3-level passing concepts. And I want you to watch the outside receiver, Tutu Atwell, to the top of the screen. Early in this game, he did get Benford on this. And this is big because you're getting the naked bootleg. So the quarterback's getting outside the pocket. And now Taron Johnson, because he has to stay into his run fit, on those cutback runs, on those zone runs. Now look at the distance between him and the wide receiver out wide. And Anthony, he's a flat player here, right? This is cover 3.
Yeah, he's sucked in. And you see him looking back like, uh-oh. Like he's got to get out there. Nice little route. Tom Brady called it a squirrel route when Tutu Atwell ran this on the broadcast. The little fake.
That's the EP playbook. That's absolutely what it's called too. That's right from the Patriots playbook.
Yeah, and Atwell does a pretty good job here. Runs Benford off, comes back. Like you said, there's no flat defender underneath because of the action we saw earlier. Taron Johnson gets sucked in, and that spot is vacated. And Johnson does a decent job recovering, but there's just so much space. This is being run to the field side, and with him vacating that zone, obviously a problem in a window to throw. And, obviously we're talking here about the Rams, but, some more under center numbers. The Detroit Lions for this upcoming week, they have the most plays in the NFL run from under center at 475. Second is the Minnesota Vikings at 390. So a huge gap and difference between that. And then if you're also talking about play action, the Lions lead the league in play action rate at 38.5%. The Colts are second at 32. So again, for you folks, a lot of this, it's not just pain of kind of like revisiting what happened. Like Erik has said a bunch, a lot of what you're seeing this week in this film room from the Rams game will apply to the Lions game again.